deep in the heart of Siberia. Outside your windshield, it is a brutal, bone-crilling -40 degrees. The entire dashboard is violently shivering from the sheer intensity of the frost. We often picture a long-haul trucker just pulling over, climbing into the back, and drifting off into a peaceful sleep. But out here, that illusion shatters completely. Welcome to a reality where thick layers of ice crawl up the inside of your windows, and your engine must scream at idle all night long just to keep you from freezing to death. Outside, the ferocious winds of the Siberian taiga lash at 60 kilometers per hour. Around you, nothing but hundreds of kilometers of absolute pitch-black emptiness. Every single night, dozens of truckers face this exact terrifying ordeal. Older rigs can turn into literal blocks of ice in less than 30 minutes. To survive, some drivers resort to desperate measures, rigging up highly dangerous homemade heaters right next to their bunks. They are willingly risking a catastrophic fire just to make it to tomorrow morning. Because out here, a single mistake means game over. Your battery dies, your fuel freezes solid. Suddenly, you are completely stranded on a deserted highway where the human body stands absolutely no chance against the elements. How do they survive? What insane, extreme tactics do these drivers use to stay alive when nature tries to freeze them solid? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you will discover the mind-blowing survival hacks that save lives when a truck cabin morphs into a deadly icy trap. Picture this: the notorious Baikal highway, dead of night. The temperature gauge has just plummeted to a merciless -42. A trucker pulls his massive rig onto the snow-covered shoulder, cuts the lights, and prepares to rest. But think about it. What happens if he kills the engine? Within a mere 20 minutes, the inside of that cabin will be just as deadly cold as the Arctic void outside. Trying to sleep in those conditions? It is a death sentence. Your body will lose heat far faster than it can ever generate it. That is exactly why veteran ice road drivers have a golden rule: never turn off the engine. They let those massive diesel engines roar all night long, burning through fuel just to keep the cabin barely above freezing. For decades, this brutal method was the only line of defense between life and death. Yet, rookies still make fatal assumptions. Some amateurs honestly believe that wrapping themselves in a heavy-duty sleeping bag is enough to survive the Siberian night without the engine running. If you look online, you will find ridiculous forums suggesting you shovel piles of snow against the truck to block the wind. Others swear by blasting the heater to the absolute max, shutting the engine down, and trying to fall asleep before the residual heat escapes. But all of these cozy internet theories collapse the moment they hit the brutal reality of physics. Without a constant active heat source, warmth escapes relentlessly. Within an hour, the interior becomes a metal freezer. And that snow trick? Total myth. It does not warm you up. It only marginally slows down the freezing process. At the end of the day, keeping a cabin warm comes down to hard science: the precise engineering of the truck's materials and the actual thickness of the insulation separating the driver from the deadly Siberian abyss. But it is not just about the engine. The brutal weather outside controls everything. You see, standard commercial trucks are only equipped with basic noise and heat insulation. It is designed for moderate civilized climates, not the apocalypse. At -40 degrees, the moment that engine dies, the cabin becomes a thermal sieve. It simply cannot hold on to heat. Within the first 30 minutes, the internal temperature plummets by a staggering 15 to 20 degrees. Give it just 1 hour, and the inside of your truck will be barely 5 degrees warmer than the frozen wasteland outside. Think about that. Now, these numbers shift depending on the truck model and the environment, but the physical laws remain the same. When a truck is stationary, an idling diesel engine does generate heat, routing a small fraction into the cab through the cooling system. But guess what? It is still not enough. To stop the engine itself from overcooling and destroying its own components, drivers have to get creative. They wrap the radiator and the oil pan in specialized thermal blankets. They jam cardboard or heavy-duty shutters over the front grille. They do all of this just to create a barely survivable microclimate inside. But let's be real, this is far from a perfect solution. Constant idling absolutely obliterates your fuel efficiency and causes massive accelerated wear on the cylinders and pistons. The true ultimate savior out here is an autonomous heater, but we will get to that game changer in just a moment. First, let's look at the terrifyingly dangerous methods desperate drivers cook up when standard equipment fails. Some of these will honestly shock you. When you are fighting for survival, human ingenuity can birth some truly lethal inventions. Up in the frozen north, there are notorious stories of drivers placing a heavy metal tray right on the floor of their cabin. What goes on it? Bricks or massive stones heated directly over an open campfire. On paper, it sounds clever, right? The stones retain heat for hours, slowly radiating warmth into the air. But here is the catch. In a tightly sealed, microscopic cabin, those rocks don't just release heat. If they were sitting in a campfire, they are actively off-gassing lethal carbon monoxide and toxic wood combustion products. Other DIY handymen rely on household propane canisters fitted with catalytic attachments or even portable camping stoves. They burn propane right inside the cab. It devours the precious oxygen and pumps out carbon dioxide. This is an absolute gamble with death. Carbon monoxide trapped inside a confined cabin leads to severe, irreversible biological damage. Trust me on this, none of these methods are safe, ever. The annual casualty statistics prove it. There is a documented case of a driver who drifted off to sleep with a gas burner running. He never woke up. As he slept, his body couldn't even register that the oxygen was completely gone. He just slipped away. Among truck drivers, dangerous myths spread like wildfire. The biggest one? That catalytic gas heaters are completely safe because they don't produce an open flame. Sure, the chemical oxidation of propane happens without a visible fire, but make no mistake, it still aggressively consumes your oxygen and it still releases deadly carbon monoxide. Another massive misconception is that you can just plug a standard household electric oil heater into the truck's power grid using a heavy-duty inverter. Sounds cozy, right? Wrong. The power draw on those devices is astronomical. It will completely drain the truck's heavy batteries in less than 30 minutes. Suddenly, the driver is left with zero electricity, a dead truck, and absolutely no way to crank the engine. Let's look at the raw science. Burning any kind of hydrocarbon fuel releases carbon monoxide. This silent killer binds to your blood's hemoglobin 200 times faster than oxygen, causing rapid systemic oxygen deprivation. Even a tiny, invisible concentration in the air will kill a human being within a matter of hours. In a standard truck cabin with zero ventilation, a simple gas burner will hit lethal concentration levels before the night is even halfway through. And that is not even mentioning the fire hazard. An open flame or a superheated brick can instantly ignite cabin upholstery, clothing, or factory insulation. The bottom line? The only truly safe way to burn fuel for heat is a factory-installed autonomous heater. It features a totally sealed combustion chamber and routes its toxic exhaust completely outside the vehicle. And that engineering marvel is exactly what we are diving into next. Let's rewind to the 1990s. A massive wave of German engineering hit the frozen roads of Russia, and it changed everything. It was called Webasto, short for Westfälische Apparaterbau. This name quickly became the universal shorthand for every autonomous heater on the planet. Imagine a compact device barely the size of a standard shoebox tucked away neatly beneath the cabin or inside the luggage compartment. It operates completely independently of the truck's massive engine. All the driver has to do is tap a single button. Within 2 short minutes, a blast of hot, dry, comforting air begins pumping through the vents. The best part? It burns through fuel 10 times slower than a massive engine idling all night. Suddenly, truckers could sleep in absolute warmth without chewing through the engine's lifespan or destroying their fuel budget. But as with any breakthrough technology, a lot of paranoia started to spread. People actually claimed these units could explode right under your seat because they burn raw fuel. But let's look at the actual engineering. The internal combustion chamber is completely hermetically sealed. The oxygen supply and the toxic exhaust gases are routed entirely outside the cabin. Another classic myth is that the heater will aggressively kill your battery overnight. Now, it is true that the internal fan and the glow plug require electricity to start up. But once it hits its standard operating mode, the power consumption drops to an absolute crawl. As long as your battery is healthy, a Webasto will easily run for 8 to 10 hours straight, maintaining a perfect, cozy climate while you sleep. So how does this brilliant piece of hardware actually function? The process is incredibly simple, yet highly efficient. A specialized miniature pump draws fuel directly from the truck's main diesel tank and sends it straight into the combustion chamber. There, a precision nozzle atomizes the fuel, and a heavy-duty glow plug ignites it. Fresh air is sucked in from the frozen world outside through a dedicated intake pipe, while the toxic exhaust is violently pushed out through a muffler beneath the chassis. Inside the unit, a highly conductive heat exchanger warms up the air drawn from the cabin, and an internal fan recirculates it back into the living space. The result? The air the driver breathes stays perfectly clean, fresh, and completely isolated from the combustion process. But air heaters aren't the only weapons in a trucker's arsenal. Meet liquid heaters. These heavy-duty systems are plumbed directly into the engine's main cooling circuit. Their job: to cook the engine's block before you even turn the key, while simultaneously pushing heat into the cab through the truck's factory heater core. These things pack a serious punch. They can rocket the engine's coolant temperature up to 40 degrees Celsius in less than 30 minutes. When you combine an air heater for a comfortable night's sleep with a liquid heater for pre-starting your rig, you get the absolute gold standard of sub-zero survival. But what happens when the fuel itself turns against you? In the face of apocalyptic extreme cold, standard diesel fuel begins to change. And your batteries? They take a massive hit too. What do you do when you are stranded in the middle of nowhere and your fuel turns to sludge? Go back a few decades and you would see the exact same tragic scene playing out every winter across the desolate highways of Siberia. A massive commercial rig sits completely dead on the shoulder, and a desperate driver is using insane, highly dangerous, borderline suicidal methods to melt his fuel lines. Methods we shouldn't even talk about. Why does this happen? Because diesel fuel naturally contains paraffins. The moment the temperature drops, those paraffins begin to crystallize, transforming a smooth, flowing liquid into a thick, useless gel. Standard summer diesel starts clouding up at a mere -5 degrees. Winter blend can hold out until -25. True Arctic-grade diesel can withstand a brutal -38 to -52 degrees. But out on those remote, forgotten highways, finding the right fuel blend at a sketchy gas station is an absolute gamble. And that is exactly when drivers are forced to pull some of the craziest, high-stakes tricks out of their sleeves just to survive. Popular wisdom on the ice roads often suggests a quick fix. Just dump foreign liquids straight into your fuel tank. They claim it magically drops the freezing point. But guess what? Truck manufacturers absolutely hate this method. Doing this will completely obliterate your highly sensitive fuel injection system, triggering astronomical repair bills, or worse, leaving you with a dead, frozen engine in the dead center of a desolate highway. Then there is the classic rookie myth. Just rev and overheat the engine right before you park, and the residual heat will last you all night. It sounds logical, right? Wrong. The moment fuel stops circulating, the liquid sitting inside those exposed pipes and filters cools down at a terrifying speed, way faster than that massive, heavy engine block. But the most insane, suicidal misconception of them all, using an open flame torch to thaw out a metal fuel tank. Diesel vapors are highly volatile under pressure. There are countless horrific stories of drivers being permanently disfigured or killed when their own fuel tanks exploded right in their faces. So how do the real professionals handle it? With ruthless, systematic preparation. Step 1. Always hunt down fuel with a cloud point that is 5 to 10 degrees lower than the absolute worst-case temperature you expect to hit. To back that up, pros use specialized chemical anti-gel additives. These formulas chemically bind to the paraffin crystals, stopping them from forming those massive filter-clogging clumps. Step 2. You must heavily insulate the entire fuel delivery system. Drivers wrap their fuel lines in thick sleeves of foamed polyethylene. Then they install dedicated electric heating elements directly onto the fine fuel filter, which blast heat the second the truck starts up. Even the massive fuel tank itself gets wrapped like a winter coat in heavy layers of technical felt or advanced pentophal insulation. But your fuel system is only half the battle. What about your electrical lifeline? At a brutal -40 degrees, a battery's cranking capacity vanishes by a staggering 40 to 50%. Suddenly, your truck won't turn over. To fight this, you either have to lug those massive heavy batteries inside a warm building for the night, which is practically impossible on a deserted highway, or you wrap them in high-tech thermal blankets that lock in the residual heat from the day's drive. The real veterans go a step further. They install an entirely separate secondary battery bank wired in parallel, or they deploy a liquid engine preheater to cook both the coolant and the engine oil before they ever dare to turn the ignition key. We have talked about keeping the truck alive. But what about the human being sitting inside it? How do you keep yourself from freezing to death when the world outside is screaming? Here is a shocking truth. Even with a top-tier heater running perfectly, the temperature inside a truck cabin is completely chaotic. It might be a freezing 10 degrees Celsius down on the floorboards, but a suffocating 20 degrees up by the ceiling. Because of this thermal war zone, setting up your bunk is a precise art form. Experienced ice road truckers strip their mattresses and lay down a heavy, dense foundation of pure sheepskin or thick industrial felt. These natural materials possess incredibly low thermal conductivity and completely refuse to absorb moisture. Next comes the sleeping bag, and it cannot be a cheap camping bag. We are talking about extreme military-grade gear rated down to -40. To survive these conditions, you need bags stuffed with high-grade goose down or advanced synthetic fibers like thinsulate. And shape matters. It must be an anatomical mummy bag with a tightly cinched hood that seals your head completely. That is how you lock in every single watt of body heat. Now, a lot of amateurs think, hey, I'll just sleep in my heavy winter coat, my down jacket, and my thick snow pants. But that is a fatal mistake. It triggers a dangerous reverse effect. Your body rapidly overheats in its sleep and begins to sweat. That moisture gets trapped inside the layers, soaking the inner lining of your sleeping bag. The second your cabin heater drops its output even a tiny bit, that wet material turns into a freezing conduit, violently pulling heat away from your core. And what about the old myth of slamming a hot meal or a stiff drink before bed? Let's bust this right now. Alcohol dilates your blood vessels. It gives you a temporary, completely fake sensation of warmth, while actually accelerating your core heat loss at a terrifying rate. A hot dinner is highly effective, but you need to eat it at least 2 hours before hitting the bunk so your metabolism can process it correctly. True survival clothing relies on a strict 3-layer system. Layer 1. High-tech thermal underwear designed to aggressively wick moisture away from your skin. Layer 2. A heavy fleece or pure wool sweater engineered to trap a pocket of warm air directly against your body. Layer 3. The sleeping bag itself, packed with hollow fiber insulation designed to create thousands of microscopic air chambers. Remember this, stagnant air is the single best thermal insulator on planet Earth. The entire goal of your gear is to keep that air absolutely still. That means your sleeping bag cannot be too tight. If you compress the insulation, its efficiency drops to absolute zero. In the most apocalyptic freezes, drivers plug in heavy-duty 12-volt electric blankets. They draw a modest 50 to 60 watts, warming the bed perfectly. But you have to be incredibly careful. You must monitor your battery levels constantly, because leaving an electric blanket running completely unmonitored all night is a massive gamble. That is the terrifyingly thin line between a successful run and a frozen tragedy in the Siberian wasteland. A simple snowdrift, a failed battery, or a single moment of carelessness can turn your own truck cabin into a deadly sub-zero trap. Out here, survival isn't just about horsepower. It's a high-stakes chess match against physics, engineering, and a frozen environment that never forgives a single mistake. Time equals, quote, 0.8 seconds, quote, / greater than, would you have what it takes to survive a night out here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you respect these ice road truckers, and don't forget to subscribe for more extreme survival breakdowns. Stay warm, and we will see you in the next video.